Good morning, brand DIYers. It is Mark here on a sunny, beautiful Friday morning. Looking forward to heading in the weekend, decorating the Christmas tree, getting the final lights hung up, and just basically getting in the mood for Christmas. We bought our first eggnog and, of course, the rum. So, yeah, things are going to be looking good this weekend. I want to leave you with a quick little live stream on a topic that is very important to me. When I started out in advertising about 1989, long, long time ago, back before electricity, I got into the field as an English major and I became a copywriter. And for years and years and years, I trained under some amazing copywriters and creative directors and honed my craft. And as a result, my first love when it comes to communication is writing copy. Now, I put out a little poll a short while ago asking brand DIYers, what sort of books would you like me to write about? Books, guidebooks to help you develop a better brand. And the number two top pick was how to write better copy. And it's funny because talking to Nicole on this Tuesday, she was the expert that we brought in. She runs a freelance network out of Copenhagen. She said the number one and two experts that she brings in as freelancers are brand strategy people and copywriters, because being able to craft a compelling story is everything. And the more ubiquitous and commoditized technology becomes, the more important being able to craft copy becomes. Now, copywriting is not a God-given talent. Very, very few people possess excellent copywriting skills right out of the gate. Personally, I sort of subscribe to the Beethoven versus Mozart school. There are some of us who are like Mozart, who are natural-born copywriters and it just flows out of us. But the majority of us are like Beethoven and we have to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and go deaf and crazy in the process while we're writing our copy. So it is not something that you learn like riding a bicycle. Once you get it, you got it. But it is something that you can continue to develop and hone, which actually makes it a far more rewarding experience because it's a lifelong pursuit. So that is my intro to this. Now I want to show you a book. It is called The Copy Book, and it is how some of the best advertising writers in the world write their advertising. And I'm going to link you to it in the show notes for this show. And I love this book. A lot of the people that I looked up to, including Janet Kirsten, who is the partner to Nancy Vonk, who I also had on this show as an expert. Janet's in here, Neil French is in here, a whole bunch of people are in here that I look up to, and they were sort of my heroes. I idolized them. And each of them show samples of their copywriting, and each of them give usually lighthearted tips on how to write better copy. And you can bet that when I write the guidebook on how to write better copy, I'm going to be stealing everything from this book. So for today, though, I want to leave you with 10 suggestions, 10 tips on how to write more effective copy, given to me by one of the people in this book named Adrian Holmes, fantastic copywriter out of the UK. I looked up to him back in the 80s. I don't know where the heck he is now. Probably retired, long gone from the scene. But his advice still rings true. And what did Adrian Holmes have to say on how to write better copy? Let's start with his 10 tips. One of the most important things, tip number one, before you start, know where you want to end. So know what the point is that you want your reader to take away from your copy before you put pen to paper. Because otherwise, like a grade 6 student writing their first essay, it will just wander and meander on without a point. Start with a point and then work backwards from that with all the support points until you come back to the beginning. I find that personally a very rewarding way of doing it because it keeps you on task. Second thing, keep the reader rewarded. When we used to do ads, we would write hundreds of headlines for every single ad. And 99 of those 100 headlines would be thrown away because you'd only keep one as the headline, the absolute best one. However, oh wait, I said thrown away. They weren't thrown away. We kept all the headlines. In a good piece of copy, every single starting line of every paragraph should be sharp enough and charming enough that it can be a headline in its own right. So that's an important thing to remember. It isn't just have a great headline and then explain yourself and you're done. Try to put as much attention and care and love into every line of the copy as you would into a headline. That said, lesson number 3, don't overload your copy with flowery prose. Look at the Volkswagen ads. None of them are overburdened with big words, show-off words, or flowery prose. They just get to the point. They call a spade a shovel. However, if you read those ads from Volkswagen in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you'll still get a smile because they turn product features into compelling arguments and they give them little tiny twists that make you smile and go, huh, never thought of it that way. I just talked about not using flowery prose. Lesson number 4, read poetry. There's no need to go over the top with show-off words. However, what the poets taught us is that there are a million ways of expressing common themes. There are probably 20 ways to say grow your revenue, that you don't say grow your revenue every single time the same way in your advertising. So read a bit of poetry. Sit back and observe. Is there a way of expressing the thing that you've said 1,000 times in a new, surprising way? That's what poetry is. Number 5, read your copy out loud to yourself. I used to love this. I took a lesson here from Dave Abbott, actually one of the guys. He ran Abbott Mead Vickers, one of the most famous agencies in the world. And Dave Abbott always read his copy out loud in an American accent. He was from the UK. What I do, I thought that was an amazing idea. I like to read my copy out with a British accent because I think it makes me sound smarter. However, reading copy out loud, there's a funny thing that happens. You can read a word and you go, oh, that makes sense. But when you say the word, oftentimes you go, oh, that doesn't make any sense at all. That didn't come off the way I wanted it to. So that's what happens a lot in writing copy. We get so into the written word that we forget to take a step back and read it out loud to see if it makes sense when we hear it. On that subject, don't get precious about your words. Get other people to read your copy, not just yourself. And then when they butcher it and pull it apart and say, huh, I don't get this part, or huh, that part kind of sucks, thank them for it. Because if they weren't doing it, your customer would be doing it. And you wouldn't be getting helpful tips, you would be getting declining sales. Number 7, treat your copy like a visual object. Now, copy does not exist on its own unless you're writing a letter. Normally, copy exists in the confines of a square. And oftentimes, in that square, that ad, copy will coexist. There will be a headline. There will be a series of visuals. There will be a logo at the bottom. And the copy lives in that space. Now, any copy can be plonked in there and it will work. However, there is an appreciation of craftsmanship that consumers have, oftentimes intuitively and subconsciously, when they see something that is beautiful. They can't express why they like it, but they like it. Copy works that way. So for example, if you're writing paragraphs, you write 2 1/4 lines in your first paragraph. That's bad. That 3/4 of a line that's left blank is what we call a widow. And widows are bad. They disrupt the page. They make the page look like there isn't enough there. And it makes it look like a bunch of Tetris blocks that don't quite fit together. So when you write copy and you have a point you're making in a paragraph, make sure that the paragraph runs right to the end. Now, in today's age of mobile first, what you write that looks good on a computer screen is going to be completely shot to hell on a mobile device. However, if you're still dealing in things like brochures and print ads, pay attention to this. Another thing you should pay attention to, if there is a visual there, try to get your copy to wrap around that visual. That is, make sure the words go right to a border on the visual without having a word broken into the next line. It shows that you care and it shows that you have craft. And people do register that, even if they oftentimes can't articulate it. So treat your copy like you would a visual object. There's number 8 from Adrian Holmes. Observe the sonata structure. Now, I've done a few shows in the past on how to create a story structure using the hero's journey, using the Freytag pyramid. There are structures that you observe when you're telling a story. There's also a very useful structure that you observe when you want to write effective copy. That structure is exposition, number 1. In an exposition, you lay out the scene. You lay out perhaps the problem that people are having. Development, how your solution is the solution to that problem. That's the second part of the sonata structure. The third part is recapitulation, which means that you go back to the beginning and tie everything in your argument back to the point you said you were going to make in the headline. So, exposition, reveal. Development, framing the argument and the reason why this is the stuff that you want. Recapitulation, bringing it back to the beginning. At the end of a good piece of copy, you should be able to see a circle that takes you right back to the point that you were going to prove at the beginning. Lesson number 9, good is the enemy of great. Now, I think that this has kind of been shot to hell today. Or I thought that it had been shot to hell today because we are much more attuned to what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, put out 60 pieces of content a day. You cannot possibly aim for greatness if you're trying to create 60 pieces or 5 pieces of content every day. You can't make every tweet, every Facebook post great if you have to do 50 a day. It can't be done. However, pick your moments. There may be opportunities to take a week of time to craft a piece of copy bit by bit in a brochure or a coupon book or a print ad. And you want to know the difference that makes? Take a look at the Patagonia ad from our live stream on Wednesday. That is a great piece of copywriting, and the only way you get to that greatness is by taking the time. And to wrap it all up, piece of advice number 10, don't be afraid if you can't take the time. Everything that I just said, throw it out the window. Personally, I have found that when I'm under a crunch for a deadline, when somebody's banging on my door saying, we need that now, I write my best copy. You know why? Because your brain isn't allowed to get all precious with itself and try to analyze and counter-analyze 50 different ways of saying the same thing. It has to get that damn piece of copy out the door, and that's when you get great copy like was written for Volkswagen in the 1950s and 60s. It doesn't get in its own way. It says what it has to, and there's just enough charm to make people smile without making them go, what a show off. All right, again, I will link this in the show notes, the copybook, how the top copywriters in the world write their copy. And I am just finishing off the book on how to write a brand building book. After I'm finished that, I am going to start on how to write better copy, my next guidebook. And I have committed to myself and committed to you that I'm going to have all this stuff launched on a landing page so you can download all these guidebooks by Christmas. Well, maybe New Year's. All right, so that's my Friday. I hope you have a terrific time. I hope Christmas is looking cheery for you after this crazy, crazy year. And we'll talk on Monday.